My biggest excuse for watching NWA Power in a time when I'm not willing to sit down and watch any wrestling show that isn't a decent or special occasion is that Power runs in seasons. I had an excuse to watch NWA Power because I could I could cover each season and I was more than willing to do so. Well, now it looks like NWA is just about done with that gimmick and coming off of their last batch of NWA Power shows and coming off of their When Our Shadows Fall pay-per-view event. I think I'll do what I've been doing for every other wrestling promotion out there these days and stick to the pay-per-view events. Thank you very much. It just bugs the absolute shit out of me just how inconsequential it was to watch the episodes of NWA Power leading up to this pay-per-view. Watching that show on a week-to-week basis was fucking useless and a complete waste of time for me given how borderline random as hell the card was on this show. The opening match, while yes being excellent and not only being the best match on the show, but being the best match that I've ever seen from the NWA promotion, going back to when Power debuted, it was never advertised or built up in any way whatsoever on Power. And neither was JTG versus Fred Rosser, the Triple Threat NWA Tag Team Championship match, and the NWA Women's Championship match between Serena Deeb and Camille, especially given how Thunder Rosa and Camille had a number one contendership match on Power that went to a fucking time limit draw. Someone please tell me why the flying fuck Camille is getting an opportunity for the belt here and not Rosa. Why is Kylie Ray making her debut alongside Taryn Terrell in a spot that would have made far more sense for Camille to be in, given that it would have been the fucking payoff to their feud? The only matches that had any consistency between Power and the pay-per-view was the horribly dull match between the Pope and Tyrus, and the main event match for the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship between Nick Aldis and Trevor Murdoch, which was the match that sent this sinking ship of a show sinking mercifully to the bottom of the ocean. Not even for as much of a fan as I am of Serena Deeb these days was she able to save the show. Not her, not Pope, not Rosa, not Taryn, not anybody. Aaron Stevens' current run as tag team champions with Kratos might go somewhere mildly interesting, but what are the odds that Aaron Stevens is even going to last in wrestling anymore after the passing of Josephus? It was disappointing as hell to see his comedy gimmick go away completely when it was the most entertaining part of NWA shows, and his match with Nick Aldis at Back for the Attack pay-per-view could have turned out to be better if he went along with it still, with the Mongrovian black belt gimmick instead of whatever he's doing now. At the moment, it just seems like he's regressing, and I'm worrying that he'll soon become creatively lost like he was back in Impact Wrestling before he called it a day altogether. The eventual match between him and Kratos has the potential to sway me into thinking otherwise, but right as of now, things look a little bit too bleak for me as someone that was a really big fan of his comedy shtick, and as someone that wants this guy to play to his strengths. I've heard a lot of praise for the JTG versus Fred Rosser match, but they went out there and laid an egg, in my opinion, and that's not all on them. Like I said, this pay-per-view was so randomly put together that it made watching NWA Power prior to the pay-per-view utterly worthless. But then again, JTG wasn't exactly the greatest wrestler in the world, even when he was in WWE. Fred Rosser's been able to impress the hell out of me with his matches against Hikuleo, New Japan Strong, but at NWA, he's just another guy on the show, and by association makes NWA just feel like another indie show when I so desperately want to believe that it's not. Again, for as much as I fall in head over heels with Serena Deeb as a throwback superstar among wrestlers, she wasn't enough to get me to care about her match with Camille, and boy did she try in that match. It was a semi-final main event on a 2-hour show that was already sinking in a match that was so randomly put together with no explanation whatsoever. I'm not sure any match could have saved me or my patience. Camille having the championship is only ever going to be more storyline bullshit on Power with her in Strictly Business. And if the episode of NWA Power that aired after this pay-per-view is anything to go off of, then I'm more than happy to keep away from watching Power even more than I was after watching this pay-per-view, because I can't see NWA being able to pull it off with her in a way that could possibly reward me for keeping up with the show anymore. The Triple Threat NWA World Tag Team Championship match was boring, but the best thing that I can say about it is that everyone involved, and especially Aaron Stevens, put a lot of effort into it. The opening Triple Threat Tag Team match that featured the debut of Triple A's La Rebellion was excellent in a way that the wrestling in the match was the best part and not so much the story. The story being what NWA likes to pride themselves on being able to deliver. Stories like the one in the main event between Nick Aldis and Trevor Murdoch for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship, which is the match on this show that I hold responsible for the entire show turning out to be complete trash overall. Nick Aldis is a wrestler that reminds me far too much of Cody Rhodes in 2021, if not nearly as insufferable as Cody Rhodes at least. Nick has been consistently unremarkable for as long as I've been watching him wrestle. He is not a wrestler that I'd pay money to see. Much like WWE, when it comes to the NWA, I'm tuning into the promotion, which in NWA's case I feel isn't the best decision for them given that they could choose to build around other guys instead of betting the entire house on Nick. And the fact that they do is what could possibly forever hold the promotion back because it isn't really working, in my opinion. I'd pay to see Ric Flair. Nick's doing an impression of NWA era Ric Flair, and that's just who he is at the end of the day. Beyond that, the finish to the match with Trevor was garbage, and the match before the finish was at best average, and Trevor's promo following the match sucked, so what a waste of a pay-per-view this turned out to be. You save a wrestler like Nick Aldis for pay-per-view despite him never, not fucking once, having a great match outside of his smoke and mirrors persona in the NWA, or if ever at all in his career. I can see through the bullshit, guys. You're not pulling this trick off as well as you think you are. And here's the part where my optimism overtakes my pessimism, even if only for a moment. The day that Nick Aldis finally drops the belt may wind up being a memorable moment in wrestling, but that doesn't mean that his reign as champion was good, because it hasn't been very good at all. It's been about as mid as NWA has been overall as a promotion since Power began a year or two ago. When Our Shadows Fall was the first real failure that they've had from my point of view, which for as much as I want to say that's disappointing, it really isn't. NWA When Our Shadows Fall 2021 was trash.